Okay, welcome everyone. Good morning. Let us begin. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening song or hymn, number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of living. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. One more time. Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of living. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come.
It says pause here and breathe in my script. So that is what we should all do. Pause here and breathe. All right, good morning. Welcome everyone. My name is Gail and my pronouns are she, her, and I am your worship associate on this terrific Sunday morning. We're going to begin our worship with a responsive reading. It's titled, We Answer the Call of Love, written by Julia Corbett Haymeyer. In the face, so you guys know how this works, right? I say the solid part and then you say the italic part. In the face of hate.
We answer the call of love.
In the face of exclusion.
We answer the call of inclusion.
In the face of homophobia.
We answer the call of LGBTQ rights.
In the face of racism.
We answer the call of justice for all races.
In the face of xenophobia.
We answer the call of pluralism.
In the face of misogyny.
We answer the call of women's rights.
In the face of demagoguery.
We answer the call of reason.
In the face of religious intolerance.
We answer the call of diversity.
In the face of narrow nationalism.
We answer the call of global community.
In the face of bigotry.
We answer the call of open-mindedness.
In the face of despair.
We answer the call of hope.
As Unitarian Universalist, we answer the call of love.
Now more than ever.
So today our chalice lighting is found in the back of our hymnal. It's reading number 448. And I'm going to ask us to recite the words together. 448. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Athena, would you please do us the honor of lighting our chalice? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And now let us rise again in body or spirit to sing in English and Spanish, hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life.
Beautiful. All right. Well, Mary Basson now has our message for all ages. So I believe that Luke may be our only person that we would call a child here today. But all the young and young at heart are welcome to come forward for this, story that's very relevant to our message today.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Basson, and I use the pronouns she and her. And I know Luke and I have been seeing a lot of information about the United States' 250th birthday lately. This book is about what happened before that, about 40 years before. Is that good? It's called Canasatego and His 6 Arrows, and the 6 arrows are going to be really symbolic. A long time ago, before the United States was born, there lived a wise leader named Canasatego. He was known throughout the land for his strong voice, kind spirit, and powerful words. He was a chief of the Onondaga Nation, part of the great alliance called the Six Nations of the Iroquois. Together, they made decisions. What state is that? New York. In June of 1744, hundreds of the Six Nations traveled to a small town called Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Luckily for the inhabitants, they came to make peace, not war. Colonial leaders from Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia came too. Everyone met at the courthouse in the middle of town. They talked about many things. They wanted to share land peacefully, and they wanted to stay safe from the war from the French. For 2 weeks, they listened and spoke. They argued and agreed. When someone said something wise or true, the people shouted, "Yo ha!" It was their way of saying, "Yes, we agree." Then one day, Canasatego stood up to speak. He reached into his quiver and pulled out only one arrow. "This arrow," he said, "is like one colony standing alone, weak and easy to break. So I could easily break this pencil in half. I'm not going to, but you know I could." With a quick snap, he broke the arrow in two. So he actually broke the arrow and showed how easily it could break. Then he pulled out 6 arrows to represent the 6 nations and held them together in a bundle. "These are like our 6 nations," he said. "Together we are strong. There's no way that anyone could break this." You can try later. He tried to break the bundle. He pulled, he twisted, but the arrows would not break. The room grew quiet. Everyone understood. One alone is weak, but together we are strong. Just like if you had a problem and you could get friends to help you with that problem, you would be a lot stronger. Canasatego's words were written down. Benjamin Franklin printed them in his newspaper so all the colonists could read them. 40 years later, when America became a new country, the founding fathers remembered Canasatego's advice when they wrote the Constitution. They created a government of the United States because together we are strong. Today, we are reminded of Canasatego's words when we look at the back of a $1 bill. There you will find the Great Seal of the United States. In the eagle's left talon is a bundle of 13 arrows representing the 13 original colonies. Look, Luke. Look very closely. There's 13 arrows there. That was inspired by Canasatego. Canasatego's wisdom lives on in our money, in our government, and in the strength we find when we stand together, just as he once taught in that Lancaster courthouse long ago. So remember, the message is, alone, it might be a little scary, but together we can do big things.
All right, and now we have Jen Dean for our call to community.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jen Dean. My pronouns are she, they, and my primary role is your board chair. Woohoo! Love plus connection equals transformation. What does that mean? It means that we want you to root yourselves in love and connect with others so we can transform ourselves and this world towards harmony and beauty. This Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. is Popcorn Theology, I'm guessing run by Adam, viewing the documentary A Force More Powerful. And if you want to learn more or you haven't heard of the movie, speak with Adam. Hospitality. Have you signed up? Everybody should say yes. No. Remember, radical hospitality is a way to be part of the resistance. There is going to be a poetry service on July 26th. Sign up with Ben or Gail R. if you have a poem you would like to read or recite to all of us. So that is going to be, it's an actual like Sunday service, but it's going to be different than we've done before, or at least since I've been here. And it's going to be poetry reading. We do have a clothing bin donation, or clothing donation bin, sorry. And have you noticed the donation bin now located on the corner of our property? It's right over here. This is offered in partnership with Symphony Textile. Gently used clothing, shoes, handbags, and children's toys may be placed in the bin. Once they are collected, they are sorted and shipped to a second-hand retailer in Central America. Textiles that can't be resold or reused are recycled. So if you have any of those things, clothing, shoes, handbags, or children's toys that you need to pass along, feel free to put them in the bin out here. And then for information on upcoming events, please check your order of service. And our e-newsletter, which is published at the beginning of each month and posted on the bulletin board in our hallway out here. Our website, uuclakeland.org, is also updated. And I know Gail has done a ton of work on our website recently. So please feel free to check it out. We're also willing to take feedback, suggestions. If there's anything you notice that just is off or should look better, we are, in general, trying to update our website and make it look better. So feel free to provide suggestions to me, and I will pass them along to Gail or speak with Gail. She's been teaching herself how to do it, so. But we greatly appreciate her willingness to teach herself. So now we're going to move on to our sharing of abundance. Today is a departure from our usual collection and an opportunity to come together as a community. There are words here that are not in the script that I just feel the need to say. I have heard feedback about this plate collection. It is not a usual plate collection, which you will understand in a moment, and it's not something we are known for having done in the past. I can't speak for what has been done in the past. I can only speak for what we do while I am board chair, because this is a board-approved Share the Plate. And I will say that as our world is changing and as needs are changing, I hope that we would continue to do Share the Plates like this, even when I'm not board chair. But I promise, as long as I am, we will continue to do Share the Plates like this. So what we are doing today is a 100% Share the Plate for our member Kim. Kim was forcibly, unjustifiably, and unjustly arrested when leaving from helping those in need at a place called Virgil's Village. They even broke the window of her car, and she got physical injuries during the arrest. While she is struggling with her own personal and financial challenges, such as being mid-divorce and unhoused, which I relate with 100% because I'm in both of those situations, she is still putting the needs of others before her own, and this is how she was treated by our Polk County sheriffs. I ask that we please come together as a congregation and help offset some of her legal and personal costs that she is accruing from this ordeal. In addition, Kim is selling her diamond paintings that are in the social hall for $10 a piece as an additional way to fundraise for her legal costs. I'm asking that we do all that we can as a congregation to support Kim through this trying time. I will also add that none of this money is it is being funneled. It is being tracked appropriately. The QR code that is in your order of service is going to defund oligarchy, blessed by liberty, specifically for, isn't it specifically for volunteers for the organization that are facing legal costs? So, okay. So if you use the QR code, it is being funneled through defund oligarchy, blessed by liberty, and the 100% of the money that's being put in the plate will be going to Kim, but it's going to go through Heather's discretionary fund first. So having said all of that, the ushers will now pass our plates to receive your gifts. Thank you, everyone. And I will also add that I'm going to keep this share the plate QR code in the order of service for a bit. I know she is needing most of her funds by August, I believe, so we've got a little bit of time, but you can continue donating to the Defund Oligarchy, Blessed by Liberty QR code to help her get through this, because, yeah, it was not okay what happened to her in any way. And now moving on to, I guess we also have the QR code up there. Please repeat after me. It is a blessing to be.
It is a blessing to be.
It is a blessing to be here.
It is a blessing to be here.
It is a blessing to be here now.
It is a blessing to be here now.
It is a blessing to be here now together.
It is a blessing to be here now together.
And now, Gail, if you'd like to do the healing candle.
At the time the first Europeans stepped on the shores in what is now the United States of America and Canada, estimates are that there were 7 to 18 million people already in independent, established societies on this land. Among those societies, there was the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, also known by the Europeans as the Iroquois. The Confederacy was formed in 1142 in order to bring peace to warring tribes. The participating nations, Mohawk, Onondaga, Cayuga, Oneida, Seneca, and later the Tuscarora, formed a constitutional political system known as the Great Law of Peace, in which the nations maintained their own leadership and agreed that common causes would be decided by a Grand Council, elected from participating nations. The concept was based on peace and consensus. The oral tradition of the Great Law uses the imagery of a bundle of 5 arrows tied together to symbolize the complete union of the nations and the unbroken strength that such unity imparts. The Haudenosaunee had been a functioning democracy for centuries by the time the founders of the United States were researching and debating a structure and form of governance to unite the colonies. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams were among the colonists who drew inspiration from the indigenous forms of government that they observed, with the Great Law of Peace being prominent among them. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy continues today and is the oldest living participatory democracy on earth, blending law and values. In 1988, the U.S. Senate paid tribute to the significant historical role of the Haudenosaunee with a resolution that said in part, the confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, as were many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. Today, as the United States celebrates the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, we acknowledge the legacy of the people of the Haudenosaunee who guided and encouraged the formation of these United States. We honor their wisdom in forming a democratic government that has stood the test of centuries and their generosity in sharing their wisdom in good faith. Our shared Unitarian Universalist values urge us to strive for a renewed commitment to our democratic ideals, and beyond that, to a more perfect union where we continue to learn from indigenous models of leadership how to live and govern in greater harmony, safety, and care for the future of the planet and the generations that follow us. Today, our healing candle represents this complicated history and our aspirations for a future in which all may thrive. Tom, will you please light our healing candle?
There are indications this property was once an Indian village. Before us, the Indians met on this property.
Thank you. As a congregation, we come together in many ways. Through collaboration and commitment, we support one another. Our ritual of joys and sorrows allows us to put that into tangible practice. Our Joys and Sorrows book is an opportunity to share with everyone here something that is occurring in your life, whether that be an ongoing source of grief or something that made you smile for a brief yet memorable moment. Before the beginning of service, the Joys and Sorrows book is accessible to anyone who wishes to write down a personal joy or sorrow to share. It sits on the podium just through the main entrance to the sanctuary. Tom Mead wishes to share words written by John Adams to his wife Abigail on July 3rd, 1776, predicting that Americans would always commemorate the next day's Declaration of Independence with reverence and joyousness. I hope that's not a bad sign that the healing candle went out. Oh, goodness. Adams wrote, I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward, forevermore. Okay. Oh dear. Today, July 5th, in our book, Sorrow, from Ron and Alicia. Our great Pyrenees Sasha decided to go for a walk yesterday and has not come home. A Joy and a Sorrow, from Grace and Lily. We are very excited for our new life in Minnesota, but we will miss many people in Florida. Feeling lucky that we have so many people to miss. And a joy from Sherry, very joyful, that I got to meet and love Lily and Grace. I wish them well on their new journey to Minnesota. I will miss seeing their smiling faces, but am so happy for them and their dreams are coming true. Please join me in wishing them happy trails. Yay. And let's hope that Sasha walks back home. Thank you. So let us read our small prayer that we have, or recite it together. You are not alone. We are holding it together. As a congregation, we value interdependence. Sharing joys and sorrows through words and ritual is a part of what that means to us. I invite you to partake in our ritual of dropping stones into our joys and sorrows bowls. We have one on each side of the altar table, and the stones are at the rear of the sanctuary. It is an act of coming together, perhaps with the divine, with fellow members of the congregation, or parts of yourself that you wish to connect with. In this moment, you are welcome to come together in whichever way feels right to you. And if we do have visitors here today on what are those things, YouTube or Facebook, welcome and greetings to you, and I'm grateful that we can all hold it together. Our centering words today are titled Love is My Guide, modeled on the 23rd Psalm and written by Melissa Jeter. Love is my guide, I shall not falter. Love calls me to rest when I feel disconnected. Beloveds, lead me to deep waters where I sit to think in solitude. My mind and heart reshape and adapt. Love allows my ego to slowly sink. Though I move through the valley of chaos and inequity, I shall keep my heart open. For there is elegance in patterns seen over time. Love is my breath of breath, and just as long as I have breath, I will keep steadfast on a moral path. And now we will have Tom Mead offer our message.
I can use that. Okay. All right, thank you.
There is historical precedent for continuing the 4th of July celebrations beyond that date, the 4th. Precedents go way back to the beginning of our republic. Actually, the public did not know about the Declaration until July 8th, when it was publicly read from the old State House in Pennsylvania, now known as Independence Hall. And thereafter, there were several days of celebration of our declared independence. And as we know, after that, there were 5 years of warfare to make our point stick. I brought some props. I won't read them, but I did, partly. I went to the library in Bartow and asked the librarian for anything they had. This was last week, about the Declaration of Independence and surroundings pertaining to that. And I thought, well, I'm going to have slim pickings because, you know, after all, everybody's going to want to read about this. And the librarian said, no, we haven't had very many takers of books, so she had plenty for me. And I figured, well, okay, people haven't taken out books, but they did go online, right? Or maybe they didn't, I don't know. Anyway, before I start formally, I have a sadness to report. A good friend of mine, well, his wife kicked him out. And the story is that she was sorting through her clothes and told him she was going to give her clothes to, her old clothes, to poor, starving women. And his response was, well, any woman who can wear your clothes is certainly not starving. I was told in Toastmasters many years ago that it does a speaker well to introduce with a joke specifically on an important occasion. All right, if you're feeling a little bit of grief or sadness or ambivalence celebrating this 4th of July, that is a sign, actually, of how deeply you and I love our country. Amen. All right, well, Floyd, you there.
Oh, yeah.
Sit up and pay attention.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Floyd, I'm going to test you with a question.
Oh, really? Okay.
All right, see if you've been paying attention. How many times did Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence refer to a supreme being?
I believe it was 4.
You are correct. All right, I hope you absolve me from my transgression, but I know you do have your stage hook to pull me off if I mess up. Okay. Now, I speak from a pulpit, but not ex cathedral, ex cathedra, which is a Catholic saying that when the Pope speaks ex cathedra, that is taken to be an official statement of the position of the church. My statements made here are nothing of that sort. They are my opinion alone, and I respect that. Now, you may notice that I wrote this on a bunch of envelopes. Well, that's because that's what I happen to have around. And there is historic precedent. Abraham Lincoln wrote his Gettysburg Address on the train from Washington to Gettysburg on the back of an envelope. Not that what I'm going to say has that same import. All right, the most famous sentence, according to many scholars, in political history: all men are created equal. Well, what did Jefferson mean by all men? It turns out that he did not mean women. He did not mean blacks, particularly slaves. He did not mean Native Americans. What he meant by all men was wealthy, or at least middle class, white, upstanding, reasonable, rational, correct men like himself and his compatriots, of course.
Of course.
Of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, and incidentally, it wasn't signed completely until about a month after July 4th. Of the 56 signers, 41 of them owned slaves. The other Americans. Jefferson himself, at the time he wrote the Declaration, owned approximately 600 slaves, including his mistress Sally Hemings, with whom he created progeny. Interestingly, black Americans, former slaves, did not get the vote until some 80 years after the Declaration of Independence in 1870, the 15th Amendment. And interestingly, a quirk of American history, black men got the vote 50 years before white women did. To put a personal perspective on this, when my mother was born in 1922, women had just received the right to vote by the 20th Amendment. But it shows that our path has been gradually one of inclusion. All right, I want to talk about the 27th and last grievance. We know there were 27, and I won't repeat the grievances that I spoke about last year at this time about the problems we had with the king, and you can think about some of the problems we have with our current king, which sound very much similar. The 27th grievance. Oh, why 27? Well, Jefferson, of course, was a very religious man, even though it was his own religion. He, in fact, with scissors and paste, cut out passages from the Bible that he believed and eliminated others, made the Jefferson Bible. So the 27th Amendment accuses the king of inciting domestic insurrections among us and causing the savage slaves, that is the Native Americans, to create havoc and destruction. Well, did Jefferson believe that? Some scholars say no, not really. It was a make-weight to make up 27 grievances, thrice the Trinity. But there was a political basis. George III was reportedly very concerned that Americans, the colonists, he didn't call them Americans, they were colonists, would ally with the Indians to fight the Redcoats, which in fact happened on occasion. And so the colonists and the French, during the French and Indian Wars just before our Revolution, the French and English were fighting each other, as they often did, and both trying to get Indians to join their respective sides. And so Jefferson's 27th grievance was an attempt to make weight to the argument that the king was inciting other people against our desired independence. So he may have been a bit racist, but the motivation behind that was not racism entirely. Okay, now to some of the other Americans, as I promised in the little blurb in our newsletter. Frederick Douglass. He was former slave, of course, but self-educated and became one of the most literate and literary men of his age. Let me read just a couple short passages. One of them was about the Declaration of Independence, and he basically said, well, it's your declaration, white man, not mine. He says, I say with a sad sense of the disparity between us, I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. He was saying this in 1852 in a group of liberal-leaning suffragists and abolitionists. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, but not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes of death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. So it was not for all Americans. Hopefully now it is. Another thing I noticed about Frederick Douglass is where he got his inspiration from. He was widely read, and he had read the European philosophers expounding freedom and liberty amongst people as opposed to the divine right of kings. But he mentioned in one of his writings, sitting beneath tall pines. Where have we heard that before? And getting inspiration from voices he heard from the pines. Okay, now, not to forget women. Women had a prominent part in the American Revolution, or as the British called it, the insurrection. Molly Pitcher, not her real name, but she became known as the bravest woman, perhaps, on the battlefield. She risks musket bullets or musket balls to care for the sick and wounded on the battlefield. Sybil Livingston rode twice as far as Paul Revere did, again to warn of the British Redcoats' approach. Deborah Sampson fought for 2 years as a soldier disguised as a man before she was found out. Of course, there's Abigail Adams, who inveighed unsuccessfully with her husband to not forget women in the Declaration of Independence. There's no expressed mention of women. Betsy Ross, of course, the creator of the first American flag, 13 stars, 13 stripes in a circle, called Old Glory. And then there was the unnamed Agent 355. George Washington had a spy ring called the Culpeper Ring, and there's a law firm in town by that name, the Culpeper. And she was credited with ferreting out many of the British military's secrets. Then, in one of the pictures here, you will see a picture of a woman with her 2 kids. That woman is Elizabeth Stanton, who was an abolitionist and a suffragist, along with Susan B. Anthony, whose likeness appeared on dollar coins in the 70s. And lastly, showing her bravery in this insurrection was Catherine Goddard. She published what was known as the Goddard Broadside. It was the first printed Declaration of Independence. It was offered to many printers to broadly disseminate the handwritten declaration. At first, all of the male printers didn't do it because, as Ben Franklin said, well, I'll get to that later. It was dire consequences if they published anything insurrectionary. These were called the Goddard Broadsides, the first 200 printed copies of the Declaration. And then after that, several men dared to print copies of the Declaration. Does anybody know what a broadside was? It was taken to be a printed document. Yes, Adam.
Kind of like a poster. A broadside's kind of like a poster.
Okay, broadside from naval naval warfare in the 18th century. Of course, in those days, the ships had cannons landing both sides. You couldn't shoot very well from front or rear. And so to use the maximum force of your cannons, you had to sail broadside to the enemy and fire all the cannons, and that was giving the enemy a broadside. So the Goddard Broadside had that meaning. And not to forget the Native Americans. You've heard about the Iroquois Confederacy, also called the Iroquois League. And they surprisingly had some Unitarian beliefs, although it happened a long, long time before Unitarianism. The 6 indigenous tribes believed in the power of women. The government they set up among the tribes was matrilineal. That is, the senior women had veto power over what any tribal male chieftain wanted to do. It was government by consensus, not by majority. Where have we heard consensus? How about Martha's Rules? Okay. Lastly, the Iroquois Confederacy developed a system of balance of powers. Where have we heard that? In our Constitution? So no tribe could rule by itself of the 6 tribes. Women could countermand males, as I said, if the males got out of hand. And there was a rule that everybody got heard before any action was taken. Ben Franklin introduced these ideas before the Constitutional Convention of 1787. Okay, well, why do we have a Declaration of Independence? Well, as the Constitution said 13 years later, in 1787, it is, among other things, to promote the general welfare in the preamble to the Constitution. And an idea of that was the common good. Jefferson relied heavily on the English philosophers such as David Hume and John Locke, and also the continental philosophers, Voltaire, Rousseau, people who were writing about the rights of man about that time. And so a major idea was Government should provide for the common good. John Locke, writing some 50 or so years before Jefferson, said, "Enough in the commons, we not only show our moral compassion to others less fortunate, we also nurture the social bonds that temper resentments, political polarization, and popular backlash." Maybe our present government should take heed. Okay. Now, economics, of course, were important in Jefferson's time, as today politics has always been intertwined with economics. Adam Smith, in 1776, published The Wealth of Nations, which advocated participatory democracy in a free market. He mentioned an invisible hand of the market controlling people's actions in a way that would be beneficial to all. And we have become the richest country in the world partly because of free market capitalism, although arguably the free markets have by now gone a bit too far. Amen. During the reign of Louis XVI, we were very fortunate in that our revolution occurred when England was fighting France, and we got help from another monarch against our monarch, from Louis XVI. He sent soldiers, including Lafayette's soldiers, to train and reinforce American soldiers. Well, Louis XVI got wind of this new thing called capitalism, which was a reaction to feudalism. And Louis asked his people through his ministers, what can I, the king, do to help this new thing called capitalism so people will have more bread to eat, more money? And his ministers told Louis, the king, "Nous laissez faire," which means leave us alone. Laissez-faire economics. For the past, since the beginning, about almost 100 years, we have increasingly regulated capitalism, and now maybe increasingly dysregulated. I'll get more of that a little bit later. Now to our Constitution, which was promulgated 13 years later than the Declaration. The 10 amendments were insisted upon by a few, including the Bill of Rights. Well, FDR in World War II, 1944, promulgated an amendment to the Bill of Rights. And let me read a few of the things that he wanted laws passed to enforce. He said, everybody has the right to a remunerative job. Everybody has a right to adequate food, clothing, and recreation. Funny, he added recreation. That's important. Everybody has the right to be doing their business free of monopolies and free of unfair competition. Everybody has the right to a decent home. Everybody has the right to adequate medical care. And everybody has the right to protection from certain economic calamities, such as old age, sickness, and accidents. This presaged Medicare, Social Security had just been enacted, and workers' compensation, laws like that. And lastly, he said everybody has the right to a good education. Truman, following Roosevelt, everybody on the, well, not everybody, a lot of people on the other side of the aisle from Truman called him a socialist for what he was trying to do. And Truman's response was, well, socialism was what they called public power, the Tennessee Valley Authority. Socialism is what they called Social Security. Socialism is what they called labor unionizing. Socialism is their name for that anything that helps all the people. Now, in the Nordic countries, as you know, Scandinavia, there is a predominant form of government called democratic socialism. So let me read a few tenets of that. And I think you'll find that they agree pretty closely with Unitarian Universalist beliefs. The first one is democracy first. That is free elections, equal rights, and your voice counts. Second is people over profit. That is, people deserve health care, housing, and their basic needs taken care of if they cannot. Third one is economic fairness. Today, about 2/3 of the wealth of the United States is owned by about a tenth of the populace. Does that sound fair to you? Then there is worker power, the right to unionize and work for better conditions. Then there's a sustainable future. We need to protect our planet. And last is justice and equality, equal opportunity for all. Not equal result necessarily, but equal opportunity. Now I'm going to get dark for just a moment and then light again. Our current king, according to Robert Reich, Clinton's labor secretary, is acting according to 5 principles. One is a rejection of democracy in favor of one strong man. 2 is a rejection of the intelligentsia. Remember our chief executive's moves to defund Harvard if they didn't bend to his political will. Third is nationalism based on a superior race. We heard that back to the 30s. The Mexicans are not sending us their best people. Fourth is state power and social Darwinism. Our people are stronger than your people. And fifth is a disdain of women and LGBT people. The idea, going back to the 30s, of the ideal Aryan soldier being a strong, tall, white male who should have power over everybody else. Little comparison with that kind of political thinking with animal thinking, if you will. Let me refer to a wolf pack. Now, in a wolf pack, the pack is typically led by an older female, a she-wolf. Not usually by a male. And the she-wolf leads the pack not from the front, but from behind. She goes behind and rounds up any stragglers or any of the ones that are a little bit too weak to keep up with the pack. And the message from that is that animals, particularly wolves, do not elect the least competent among them. Back to Ben Franklin. We are in a moment that may repeat the moments of 250 years ago. Ben Franklin said very solemnly, but like a bread baker with a wry sense of humor. He said, yes, we must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately. Are we now again in an all-hang moment? I'll pose that question. Now to lighten up a bit. MLK had the aspirational statement, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." We have heard Barack Obama say that during his presidency. But both MLK and Obama were citing a Unitarian minister, Theodore Parker, who wrote those words in a sermon in 1853. Well, with all this history, what can we do now? Well, some practical things. One, we can agitate Congress to overturn Citizens United versus FEC, the 2010 Supreme Court ruling that said money is speech and gave corporations, under the guise of free speech, power to give unlimited dark money to whoever they wanted. Secondly, this is difficult but possible, a constitutional amendment to abolish the outdated Electoral College. Now, again, this is my opinion, and I take responsible for what I'm saying. The Electoral College has given minority states undue power in deciding national elections. We need 37 states to ratify a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College, and we're partway there, but it probably won't happen, not in my lifetime. Third, an end run around the Electoral College is called the Interstate Voters Compact. How many have heard about that? Keno, of course, I know you would. This is kind of an end run around the Citizens United case. And what it says is that these states come to an agreement amongst themselves, which they are constitutionally allowed to do, to award their electoral votes, each state, to the candidate who nationwide has the most electoral votes. Yeah, very simple idea, completely within our constitutional framework, and it may happen. Right now, we have 19 states that have signed on to it, and that represents 222 electoral votes out of the 270 needed to sway an election. With that, a little bit of news. The Supreme Court, just 2 days ago, rendered an opinion that said the current chief executive's executive order excuse me. Okay. His executive order that takes away the 14th Amendment right to citizenship, saying that every person born or naturalized in this country is a citizen of the United States and the state in which he was born. Okay, the Supreme Court said the order trying to overturn that is null and void. That's the good news. The bad news is that it was only a 5-4 decision, which means if it had gone one vote the other way, any future president, by executive order, could override the Constitution. Okay, finally, I hark back to Abraham Lincoln, the great mid-century champion of human rights. On the train to Gettysburg from DC, he wrote 263 words that ended thus: we hear, yes, every one of us, I hope, highly resolve that these dead at Gettysburg shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth.
Excellent message, Tom.
All right, we now have hymn number 159, This Is My Song. Please rise in body and spirit.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hope and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Thank you. I know we're running a little bit longer than usual, and I thank you all for your thoughtful attention. We have closing words from Sherry, which are very pertinent to the time that we are in today. And so I invite her to now speak to us.
Hi, everybody. Good morning or afternoon. So when I wrote this reflection, I don't know if y'all know this, but it was every week and now every month in the monthly newsletter, I write a column, social justice column, and I put a reflection in there, and I just wrote this for that. And I had no idea that it was going to just line up completely with what was going on with this week's message. So, coinky-dink, maybe. Anyway, my name is Sherry Kent, and I'm a member of this congregation. And these are a reflection, a Unitarian Universalist reflection as the Great American Experiment turns 250 years old. And I wrote this because I've been feeling a certain way. I grew up very patriotic, military family, love my country, and I was just talking the other day about how on my 40th birthday, which was 20 years ago this month, I went to New York City, and I happened to be on a boat in the estuary with the Statue of Liberty in front of me, and just thinking, how fortunate am I to be here? And I was so proud, and I feel so different today. And it's kind of heartbreaking, but anyway, that's where this came from. So as the United States approaches its 250th birthday, we find ourselves standing at an important threshold. Anniversaries invite us to look backward with honesty and forward with courage. They ask us not only what we have inherited, but also what we are called to become. The Constitution of the United States begins with 3 powerful words: we the people. Those words express a radical idea that a government derives its authority not from kings, wealth, or divine right, but from the people themselves. Democracy is an act of faith. Faith that ordinary people can govern themselves, that diverse voices matter, and that liberty and justice are worthy of our collective effort. As Unitarian Universalists, we approach democracy not merely as a political system, but as a moral and spiritual practice. Our faith affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person, the importance of justice, equity, and compassion, and the right of conscience and the democratic process. Democracy reflects our belief that every voice has value and that communities are strongest when all people are invited to participate, like the 6 arrows. And just as a side note before I keep reading, wow, how great to come and learn so much history from Tom and Gail today too. I love that. Anyway, there's much to celebrate as our nation reaches this milestone. Over these 250 years, the promise of we the people has steadily expanded. Slavery was abolished, women gained the right to vote, civil rights movements challenged segregation and discrimination, marriage equality became the law of the land. People with disabilities won greater access and protections. Religious freedom has flourished, allowing people of many faiths and no faith to live and worship according to conscience. The United States has demonstrated that democratic institutions can endure through wars, economic upheavals, social movements, and movements or moments of profound disagreement. Peaceful transfers of power, freedom of speech and independent press, and the right to organize and protest remain extraordinary accomplishments that should never be taken for granted. Yet, Unitarian Universalism also calls us to tell the whole truth. The Constitution was written at a time when many people were excluded from its protections and promises. Enslaved people, indigenous people, I just lost my place, sorry. Women and those without property were largely denied participation in the democratic process. The work of democracy has always involved expanding the circle of belonging. Even today, significant challenges remain. Economic inequality leaves many struggling to meet basic needs. Racial injustice continues to shape opportunities and outcomes. LGBTQ+ individuals, immigrants, and marginalized communities often face discrimination and hostility. Voting access remains contested in some places. Political polarization can make neighbors view one another as enemies rather than fellow citizens. And climate change presents another challenge that the framers of the Constitution could never have imagined. Yet it raises timeless questions, about our obligations to one another and future generations. As Unitarian Universalists, we understand that democracy is never finished. It is not a monument we preserve. It is a covenant we renew. Our faith teaches us that revelation is ongoing, truth unfolds, and communities grow when they're willing to listen, learn, and change. This newly adopted UU values of JETPIG, I'm sure you guys remember that acronym, but justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, all centered in love. These values offer guidance for our democratic life. Justice calls us to address inequities and protect human rights. Equity reminds us that equal opportunity often requires removing barriers. Transformation invites us to believe that both individuals and societies can change. Pluralism celebrates our differences as sources of strength rather than division. Interdependence teaches that our well-being is connected to one another and to the earth. Generosity encourages compassion, service, and civic responsibility. And at the center is love, which asks us to see one another not as opponents to defeat, but as fellow human beings deserving of dignity. As America enters its 3rd century, perhaps the question is not whether our democracy is perfect. It never has been. The question is whether we are willing to continue the work of perfecting it. The Constitution gave us the framework. Generations before us expanded its promise. The responsibility now belongs to us. May we celebrate our nation's achievements with gratitude, acknowledge its shortcomings with honesty, and approach the future with hope. May we strengthen the institutions of democracy, protect the rights of all people, and widen the circle of belonging. And may we remember that democracy, like faith itself, is an act of covenant, a promise we make to one another that every voice matters, every person has worth, and the work of justice is never complete. Thank you.
Yes. So before I start this song, I just want to decenter white slave-owning men for a second and just say that this country was not built by white men. It was built by immigrants. It was built by women. It was built by people who didn't have much to their name or anything like that. And I just want to also say Filipinos were here first before white people. I just want to let y'all know that. So I'm going to sing This Land Is Your Land. And while we were, thinking about this song and discussing it, there's some critique about it because, it doesn't talk about the native people and what happened to them. And that's understandable, but when you look at, and this is just my opinion, but when you look at Woody Guthrie's larger body of work, I think he was also including those people. That's just my personal opinion. But anyways, let's get started, man. Come on, get up here. All right. All right, ready? This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking a ribbon of highway, I saw above me an endless skyway. I saw before me a golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. I've roamed and rambled, I've followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. The sun comes shining as I was strolling, the wheat field waving, the dust clouds rolling, the fog was lifting, and I'm chanting. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking, I saw a sign there. That sign said no trespassing, but on the other side it didn't say nothing. Now that I was made for you and me. What? This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. In the squares of the city, in the shadow of the steeple, near the leaf office, I see my people. And some are grumbling, and some are wondering if this land's still made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. One more time. This land was made for you and me. Thank you.
All right, now let us extinguish the chalice. Can you repeat with me? We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. And what does Heather always say? Loved? Worthy? You are a blessing. And I know there are refreshments set up in the social hall.